Sarah, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining me on Mindful Leaders.
My pleasure. It's also a joy for me to be here.
Great. So I want to dive straight into your journey and the work that you're doing today. We met, I think, about a couple of years ago at a wellness retreat here in Yerevan. And I was blown away to hear that you had left your relatively comfortable home and lifestyle in just outside of DC in the US and moved to Gyumri. So take me to your work with the Emily Aregak Center and the Caritas Aregak Foundation, if that's how it's called, and what you're doing in Gyumri today.
Sure. So yes, as you said, it was about 6 years ago that I discovered about an opportunity to come to Armenia, and I chose Gyumri because I had received the advice that if I wanted to really understand Armenia fully and authentically, it would be wise to spend time outside of Yerevan. So that's why I chose Gyumri, and I had the opportunity to volunteer at a center, a therapy center for kids with special needs called Emily Aregak. And I didn't really know what to expect before going. And very quickly, I realized that this was a place full of light and love, a place where children were not embroiled in their difficulties, but were taking steps forward to be stronger individuals. And that gave me, a totally new outlook on life. So what we do at this center, we provide free therapies to kids with special needs. So that's, mental disabilities and physical disabilities. There are about 200 kids that come annually, and they're able to do, speech therapy, physical therapy, psychological therapy, various sorts of therapies. Their moms and dads also receive support, and I think that's hugely important as well. And from a broader perspective, our goal is to prepare these young people to enter our society and our community as full individuals. They're already full individuals, but our community does not really accept them as such. So we're trying to gird them with the tools and the skills and the capability to do that, and then train them to enter the workforce even. And so our foundation also creates social enterprises like Aregak Bakery, which employs young people who graduate from that center. And they're also able to, through their examples, showing their ability in action, change stereotypes as well about disability.
And there are projects that you'll be implementing, I'm assuming, apart from the cafe that people know about in Gyumri, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
More other different social enterprises that you're thinking of implementing?
This year. So we're on the brink of Earth Day. Earth Day is April 22nd. I'm excited to announce we're opening a greenhouse this year, actually, to employ young people with disabilities as well. So this is going to provide workplaces for them, training opportunities, challenge stereotypes about, what it takes to work in a greenhouse. Actually, it's a proven fact that a lot of people with disabilities excel in that working environment.
But you, for instance, came, let's say, for a 1-year volunteer program and decided to stay.
Yes.
And people usually stay either in Yerevan, mostly in Yerevan. You decided to stay, you purchased a house, an apartment in Gyumri. Why is that?
Oh, that's a big question. When I was given the opportunity to stay in the form of a job offer, I thought, I could go back to America and always regret what could have been, or I can seize this opportunity. An opportunity that will allow me to grow as an individual, as a professional, but will also allow me to give back, make an impact. And that's one of the beautiful things about the place where I work, is that my office is in the middle of this therapy center. Yeah, sometimes it's noisy, there's a lot going on, but I love being able to step outside of my office and see those smiles and those bright eyes, the faces of the kids we get to help and who change us and challenge us every day as well. So I think for me this is an amazing opportunity to just grow and to give, growing and giving.
Right. You mentioned seizing the opportunity. I think life is really full of coincidences. And it's important that we actually seize these moments that are, these moments of coincidences that could be blessings in disguise. Tell me a little bit about what this means, especially, and give me some idea of the key metamorphic moments that have shaped your life.
Sure. Yes. I believe that life throws us so many curveballs, and we have the opportunity every moment to say yes or no to every opportunity presented to us. There are times when it's appropriate to say no, but I'm one of those people who usually says yes. I think about the inflection points in my life that shaped me as an individual. when I was in college, I had this goal of graduating in 3 years. My sister had done it. I thought, I'm an achiever. This is something I want to do, kind of distinguish myself from the other students and show my future employer that I was, an achiever. But then I saw this opportunity. It fell in my path to study in Northern Ireland. It was an exchange program. And to do that, it would mean graduating in 4 years. And I thought, you know what? It's not important to graduate in 3 years, but it is really important to explore a new country. And at that point, I hadn't traveled at all. So I seized that opportunity. I did not know what was ahead of me. I went alone. I had never even been out of the States at that point. I was 19 at the time. And that totally, totally changed me as an individual. I had been so focused on work, getting things done, being productive, stockpiling achievements. And then I realized during that time, there's so much more to life than that. Yes, we are called to do that. We're called to be the best humans we can be and accomplish a lot. But at the same time, we're called to develop relationships. We're called to explore. We're called to challenge ourselves to just new things. So I got to travel a lot. I met so many different people from different walks of life. And that distinctly prepared me for, I think, the next inflection point, which was my journey to Armenia.
Okay, so I hear the words achievement, and obviously this for me is a big question I usually ask my guests, and I can't help but ask it also here. Where society actually tends to condition us to think of what success means. You have to achieve a certain level of professional success, financial fame, or wealth. And just the roles that you have and the career path that you have to take. But I think from what I hear from you, and I actually agree with you, life is not just about achievement, it's also about self-realization, fulfillment, and really being true to oneself. What does it mean to be authentic? What does it mean to actually find meaning in what we do? You spoke about how that means, what this work means for you. But if you were to actually educate other children who are going through this difficult time, what would you tell them? And how should they actually find their true selves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always use this idea of a script. I did acting for many years, and I love acting and being on the stage. And one time it hit me. I thought, life is like a script in a way. Many of us are handed the script at the beginning, when we're a young child and we're conditioned by our parents, by our friends, by media, expectations of people around us to follow that script word for word. And then at some point we come to the realization, wait a second, I don't like what this script has scripted. We start to feel guilty, but should I like that? Everyone else is doing it, I should do it. I would challenge that and say, no, take a hard look at your script and change it. Change it if you feel like you are going to be a happier, more fulfilled person by changing it. And so for me, that means I don't make the paycheck I could make.
Right.
And that's okay because I wake up excited to go to work every morning. I'm not doing something that the coolest people in the world would look at and say, wow, she's a mover, shaker. That's okay because I see a smile. I see true gratitude in the eyes of a parent of a special needs child who has started to walk because of what our therapy center has done, Or I see a mom working in the bakery who never imagined she could hold a job because she's never been able to find flexible employment opportunities. But now she has a great job at the bakery. Her croissants are, famous across Armenia, So for me, you just need to understand what you want. If it deviates from the script, so be it. It's your life.
It's hard though, isn't it?
It is.
Because we're there's so much conditioning, there's so much happening in the world from our parents, from education, from society in general. So it's really hard not to hear that in our heads, and what's happening. So following our heart, that's so woohoo, it's so out there. But evidently there's something that actually brings some joy and fulfillment to you. I mean, you told me that you were always every day excited to wake up and go to work. Yes. I mean, I think more than 80% of the world today, of the people today, just do not have that sense of fulfillment, waking up in the morning, being excited to. So I commend you on that. That's beautiful. I also want to touch upon a little bit about the wellness aspect of it, because I know you're a runner.
Yes.
And you're really into wellness, health. I mean, you've been living in Armenia for a while now. And I recently had a conversation with Dr. Anya Prahamyan, who said that the number one mortality rate in Armenia is from cancer, 5 different types of cancers. So yeah, we do need, obviously ways to identify, but what about prevention? And that means, health-wise, how are we living in Armenia to prevent not just cancer, but any kind of illness? Obviously, we need to start with the way we live our lives, what we eat, how we deal with it. What have you noticed in Armenia that has been really problematic for you, and what would you like to do to change it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It is a passion point for me. I just want to start by saying, our body is what we have. Our body is what does everything for us, right? Our body houses our brain, works our hands, our feet, and that is what enables us to accomplish what we do, right? To care for our kids, to do our work, to think, to produce. And so what we put into our body first and foremost is, going to influence how we do everything we do. So for me, I think nutrition, number one, is most important. And we're blessed to have a country. We have amazingly fresh fruits and vegetables. We have really great healthy stuff. I think there's a knowledge gap, honestly. I think that there is a bit of ignorance about what powers our bodies the best. So I do think we need some educational campaigns to just inform people, that, for example, eating candy a lot is not only bad for our teeth, which I think many people already know now, but also can lead to hyperactivity and developmental problems in kids, right? And that it can lead to cancer, to diabetes. These are all preventable diseases, right? So nutrition. Also for me, as you said, I'm a runner. I'm really passionate about strong bodies. And women in Armenia, I think, could benefit so much from caring about their bodies in that way. Not only their appearances, but their physical wellness. Running for me gives me an opportunity to detach from everything. And I think so much of us are overwhelmed by social media, by our schedules, everything going on. And running actually is a literal escape, We have beautiful nature in this country too, Lifting weights gives us the strength, functional strength to do what we need to do every day. And I think women could be so much more empowered and confident if they invested in that. And if our society placed importance on that for them. Sadly, one thing I've seen is that many people view that as a waste of time. What are you accomplishing by, investing in the strength of your body? It also powers our minds to work better as well. And our emotions. It's tied to our emotions and our mood.
Of course.
Yeah.
Social media, it's interesting that you say that, because I think I recall reading, I think this tech philosopher, his name was Tristan Harris, I hope I'm not butchering his name. Yeah, Tristan Harris. And he actually mentioned that he thinks that technology is downgrading human skills, because our virtual reality is really distancing us from social reality. Yeah. We tend to, it's easy to be able to have a conversation online, and if the conversation is uncomfortable, you just shut it down. But you can't, in real life, unfriend a bad neighbor or a toxic colleague. So these kinds of in-person or personable social relations have taken a big hit. What do you think about that?
That is really interesting. I totally agree with that. I try as infrequently as possible to use social media, because I do find that living in Armenia has increased the richness of my communication, actually. In the States, I would say that. In the States, I was more of a texter. If I needed something from someone, I would probably text. And it's funny, now I just pick up the phone and call. It's quicker, but it's also a richer form of communication. I hear the voice, I hear the emotion and the inflection, right? Have I offended the other person? Is the person feeling tired? It gives you more insight into the other person.
And less of misunderstandings that take place, right?
Absolutely.
Through social media, you can have a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of different input that's being shared, but there's no constructive, conversation taking place. So evident.
Absolutely. And I think another passion point for me is I try also as infrequently as possible to use social media to show the good things that are going on in my life. I try to use it more as an informational platform for the work that I do, if people are interested in learning more about what I do. But I try as infrequently as possible to post about my life, because if I post a beautiful photo in somewhere that I've been, people are going to look at that and think, wow, she lives a cool life. They don't see that I was crying that evening or that I was feeling really depleted, right? Exactly. It is very curated. That's what it is. Social media is very curated. And we as humans are multifaceted, holistic individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Multi-sensored as well, not just the 5 senses, but even more than that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have so many questions, and I always say this to my guests, but you're a ball of energy, and I love that. I love your sense of positivity in life, especially at a time when things are so difficult. So I'm going to actually kind of change gears a little bit and talk about your ethnicity. So
Sure.
Ethnically, you are mostly from Irish and Scottish descent,
Yes.
but 1/4 Armenian, from your
Strong
mother.
and proud.
Strong and proud from your mother's father's side.
Yes.
So your maternal grandfather, Charles Mushian, he's the third child of 8. No, yes, of 10.
10.
Right.
Yeah.
He's the third child of 10 children born to parents from Kharpert, who had actually fled Kharpert right around the massacres in early 1900s and the genocide, and moved from England to Boston in the U.S. And so you don't know much about your grandfather per se because he passed away before you were born.
Yes.
And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about him. As far as what you know from your mother or from other resources, who is this man? And what's his story?
Oh, he was larger than life, so I've heard. I really wish that I could have had the opportunity to meet him. He was born in Lawrence, Massachusetts, which, as I understand, is outside of Boston. And he had a career in PR and media relations. And the two most vivid memories I have of his work life is, so the first, he was working for MGM Studios.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he was working on a movie called The Arkansas Traveler.
Oh, okay.
So he went to California, and as a PR stunt, because I guess there was a covered wagon involved in this movie, he and the crew went in a covered wagon from California all the way to Arkansas. So I think this was some crazy PR stunt that he came up with. He was very creative and kind of crazy on that side. So he ends up meeting my Irish grandmother in Arkansas. So I'm convinced he was the only Armenian in Arkansas at the time. Because I think this was in the 30s.
Right.
Or the early 40s. So that's one memory I have of him. He was a workaholic, everyone in my family says. He was involved in everything, known by everyone, Armenians and non-Armenians alike. And I think one of the most painful things, which I always think about when I find myself drifting toward workaholism, is people would say to my grandmother and my mom and her siblings, "You are so lucky to have Charles as, husband, dad." And my mom, her siblings, my grandma didn't see much of him. And he was frequently cranky when he got home and didn't give them the time they needed. So that's something that always reminds me there's balance in life. Yes, you want to get stuff done. You want to be known for things, sure. You want to make the world a better place, but that also starts at home. So he had many sides. We all do. We're multifaceted individuals.
Absolutely. A lot of people that I meet that are either descendants of some kind of a large calamity, not just Armenians, but from different parts of the world. Some of them will say to me that they don't see a connection between who they are and their inherited or their ancestral roots. But I see a parallel between you and your grandfather. In what sense? And also your great aunts, your grandfather's older sister who was born in Kharpet. So your great aunt was a missionary who traveled the world to help people. Similar to what you do, Sarah. And your grandfather, who was part of the Eisenhower administration, he was heading a campaign that was called Hire the Handicap. So they were, at that time, employing people with disabilities, right? And I can't help but think you with the Emily Aregak Center and the disabled or the disabled children that you work with, how this is so similar. Did you know about this, and how did you uncover this information?
Yeah, it was so crazy to me. It was a year after I had already been in Armenia, working as a volunteer at the therapy center, watching Aregak Bakery, Armenia's first inclusive bakery, to open. And the mission, of course, is to provide employment for people with disabilities. And only after that, I think a month into my decision to stay permanently in Armenia, I was talking with my mom, and she said, "Did you know, by the way, that my dad, your grandfather, was working on this campaign called Hire the Handicapped?" It was directly after World War II. And he was working to, through creative PR tactics, show how people were employable even if they had physical disabilities. And I did not know that. And that moment, I just thought, oh my gosh, every feeling in me, have I made the right choice by deciding to stay in Armenia? Have I not? I thought, this is missional. I do believe I'm supposed to be here. I did not know this about my grandfather. And there's this beautiful saying in Armenian, "Chakatagrits chespachchi."
You can't run away from
your destiny. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I do feel that. I hadn't thought so much that way prior to that realization, and I thought this is too coincidental.
Yeah. How beautiful is that? I mean, I'm curious to know what you felt, because like I said, there's always some kind of a connection. Sometimes it's not conscious, we're not aware of it, but obviously you were not aware of this information until after your mother told you, a year after you were working at the center. So beautiful story. I just had to mention that. You were here during the war when Azerbaijan attacked Artsakh in 2020. Tell me a little bit about your reflections. What did you witness? What emotions did you go through, and what have you seen since then, especially in Gyumri?
Yeah, that's a painful question. Painful in many ways. I think the most painful moment for me was when I realized the privilege that I grew up with by growing up in America. By growing up in an environment where I really never had to worry about war. That my friends were not going off to the front, that women who give birth in the States and have a son don't automatically think 18 years down the road, he's gonna go and serve, So that hit me. I thought, oh my gosh, just living in this country shapes you. Living in any country shapes you. I started to think so deeply about all of these questions and feel overwhelmed by them. And when the war started, I clearly had never been through something like that before. I didn't know how long it would last, what was going to happen. And the second day of the war, my neighbor was killed, who was my age. I was 26 at the time, and our birthdays were the same week. And I'd actually never met him. He lived across the street. But my roommate woke up to his mom screaming when she heard the news. And that, I think, also contributes to my mentality of seizing the moment and seizing the day, seizing opportunities that are given, because you don't know when that opportunity can be taken from you. And it also shaped my decision to give people grace too, because you never know what they're going through.
Grace.
Grace.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that was my grandmother's name. My Armenian grandfather's
Really? Beautiful.
Grace. Yeah, give people grace. You never know. You never know whether a woman has a son on the front, and maybe that's why she snapped at you in the store, or, you never know. Yeah. Always be kind, give people benefit of the doubt. There's actually something, I'm passionate about psychology, I love psychology. There's something called the fundamental attribution error. Do you know it? Are you familiar with it? Yeah. It's the idea that when you make a mistake, for example, you snap at someone, you give yourself benefit of the doubt. You say, it was my situation, I'm stressed, but I'm not like that as a person. That's not my personality. When someone else does it, you blame it on their personality, not their situation.
But it's also a mirror reflection of your issues, your concerns, your biases, your patterns, right?
Exactly. So I always think of that. Judge yourself by the same standard as you judge others. So if you're going to give yourself some slack because you're going through a rough time, give everyone else some slack as well. So now as I think about this country and where it's going, I just know I want to be part of it. I want to be part of it. I love this people. I love the Armenian people and the strength of the Armenian people. I'm proud to be even 25%. I'm a citizen. I decided to take that step because I wanted to be more involved and do what I can to help and stand in solidarity, because there are so few people who are standing in solidarity with Armenians.
It's so interesting you say this, because I know so many people that actually packed up their bags and left the country. They don't see a future here. It's volatile, it's unstable. I know issues of not knowing what the future is for this geographic region. Fear of having their child, sent off to a military. You don't know what's going to happen on the borders. And then I see people like you who actually say, I still have something to do and to give and to contribute. What would you say to people who are still in that thought, where they're thinking there's no future for me here?
Great question.
How do you answer that?
First of all, no blame whatsoever. People who decide to leave, I understand. It's hard. I have there's no judgment from me. It's hard. It's hard to live here. And I'm a single woman. I don't have kids. Right. Even when I imagine raising kids in Armenia with the uncertainty, political, economic, national security related, I understand. It's really hard, and I can't imagine that. But I would say, and I should also add, I have the safety net too of an American citizenship. So I want to be very forthright and blunt and say I have that, and I'm sure that shapes me psychologically. At the same time, if people are facing that decision, I would say, again, like I said at the beginning, think about what you would regret more. If you feel you still have work here, if you love living here, if you want to invest in it, stay. Stay, find your network of people who are going to support you, because that's important too.
Yeah, the emotional support is an important one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about some other questions that I would love to ask you, but I'm going to cut this interview short with just one more question.
Sure.
So, Mother Teresa
Yes.
and C.S. Lewis.
Yes.
Tell me what these people mean for you.
Mother Teresa just challenges so much about the way we think we should live, right? And we were talking about this earlier with the concept of a script. She challenged every part of the script. As far as I know, she didn't marry. She left her home, she lived in a new home. She helped a group of people that were completely vulnerable, that no one would look at and say, wow, she was mixing with these people, movers and shakers. No, the world's most vulnerable. As I know, she hardly had any possessions. Her worldly satisfaction was lowest on the list for her. She had her eyes upward and forward. How she could help others was her primary concern. I think she's larger than life. She's an angel, and I think God put her on this earth to remind us that there's more to life than what the script says. So I always try and think of her in hard moments. And I love her quotes too. Peace begins with a smile. It's such a beautiful concept that a smile from one person to another can change everything.
Of course.
With C.S. Lewis, I'm a writer as well. I love writing. And C.S. Lewis, for me, he's amazing for so many reasons. He's so articulate in his writing. He uses few words to, promote a point, to get across a point, and I value that. It's very easy to write with many words, but he writes with few words and very acutely. And also, what I love about his writing is it's timeless. So many people are familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia, probably his most famous, children's series. Children love those books because they can relate to the story. It's an exciting story. They're heroes, people like them that they can relate to, and then heroes to aspire to be like. But then, if you peel back one layer, you see that there's allegory, there's wisdom behind it, there's a lot of biblical allusion. It's very rich and deep. And so you read it as a child, you like the story. You read it as a teen, you start to peel back those layers. You read it as an adult, reading it to your child, and you can appreciate it for different reasons. And that is amazing.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read but I never thought of it looking at the other perspective. So
yeah. I mean, he was an Anglican. He was a Christian, and he also wrote a book called Mere Christianity about his discovery of Christianity. And so he works in the gospel story into the Chronicles of Narnia. And that is powerful, because if you weren't aware of that, you might never know that he did. But if you're looking at it with that perspective, you see it brilliantly.
Oh, Sarah, it's always such a joy to talk to you. You too are larger than life. The children in Gyumri, the disabled children in Gyumri, actually, we're all lucky to have you here. I think the way you inject positivity, and I know that you have so many different projects, social enterprises in mind for the future, not just with the Emily Aregak Center or the foundation, just different projects that you have in hand. I cannot wait to see how these will unfold, and I hope I will be around to see them, because you are just a beautiful person.
Thank you, Lara.
Thank you for this time, Sarah.
My pleasure. Thank you.